slide in here. Hey everyone, if your joints creak, crack, pop, grind, this video is going to be helpful for you because I'm going to cover all of that and when you should be worried or not be worried. My name is Steve Gonser, physical therapist with Run Smart Online. I help runners get back to running faster, whether it's speed or just getting back to running after injury. One of the big questions I always get, and actually I was supposed to go live last month and talk about this, which is if I have these noisy knees and they sound like Kellogg's Rice Krispies and they're creaking, cracking, how do I know if I should be worried or not? So I'm going to cover that in this video. Real quick before I get started, if you want help with your running, you think this stuff makes sense, I encourage you to check out the link in this post and look at the Run Smart app. We have strength workouts, training plans, everything you need to simplify your running and take control. Okay, I try not to pound on that again. So let's talk about the creaking and cracking and the noise. So just as a background to anatomy, we're just going to take two arbitrary bones, and let's just say this is your shin bone, so let's write shin here, and this is your thigh bone, and we'll write thigh up here. On each of these bones you have what's called cartilage, and a lot of people have heard about cartilage but they're not maybe sure what it is, but each bone that moves in your body, whether it's the tip of your finger, the joint there, or your big knee joint, they're covered with cartilage, and the cartilage essentially is this buffer between the bone, the two bones, so that the bones don't hit each other. Cartilage is like rubbing two ice cubes together. It's friction-free movement. It allows the bones to move and not grind on each other, because the bones are I always joke that bones are kind of stupid. They only know how to grow more bones. So if they rub together, they're going to grow bone. You might have heard of this as like bone spurs or osteophytes. So we want to make sure that those bones aren't rubbing together. And that's why the cartilage is there. When we're young, and even when we're active when we're young, we have really nice shiny cartilage that is thick and buffers the bones really nicely. Unfortunately, as time goes on, that cartilage can thin, it can wear out completely. You might know this as osteoarthritis. You've also may have heard words like Chondromalacia, which is a softening of the cartilage. So let's cover those things and let's talk about how they create noise in your knees. So there's different types of noise, right? So you can have, which I'm going to show you a really cool video, so hang in to the end. You're going to see a really, really cool video of why you get that popping noise whenever you crack a joint, or when maybe you go to the chiro or a PT and they manipulate your neck or your back or ankle, whatever it might be. I'm going to show you a cool video of what's going on there. But let's just say you're squatting, your knees are like, and they're just kind of making this noise. What is that? What's causing that, and should you be worried? First off, let's cover the second part of that. Should you be worried? As we age, this cartilage, whether you want to believe it or not, will wear down, will thin, will take on different stresses. It'll have to, quote unquote, almost age. People are going to hate that word, but they're going to age. And there's going to be, unfortunately, going to be some noise, especially as you get older and you're more active. What we're looking for is we're making sure that the noise is not accompanied with pain. So like you get a click with pain, or you get a crack and a pain, like sharpness that catches you like a dagger going into your knee or your hip, and it makes you want to like kind of buckle. That is not what we're talking about. That is actually more likely due to something a little bit more serious, whether it's bone-on-bone arthritis, meniscus tears, labral tears, something that it could be a little bit more serious when you have a sharp pain, a sharp catch with pain, or a sharp noise with pain. But what about just like the everyday? Like I get patients into my clinic and ask them to squat, show me your squat, and they squat down, and I joke that I'll just turn the music up so no one can hear that. But when you get that noise, what you're experiencing is normal wear and tear of your body. So this cartilage, when it's nice and smooth, let's take arthritis for example. Arthritis is a thinning of the cartilage. It could be what's called grade 4, which is the cartilage is completely worn away. And that could be a small spot or a big spot. So you can have a small spot of your cartilage, and let's say it is worn down. Let's actually take this. You're 50-something years old, you've been running your whole life, you're active, you have some noisy knees. Once you get older, this cartilage will thin, and then what can actually happen is you can lose portions of it that expose the underlying bone. So for example, if you imagine if this is also thin, and this bone is exposed, when that joint moves, you're going to actually have the thigh bone contacting some bone in the shin bone. What happens there is it can actually stimulate pain, but it also can stimulate osteophytes or bone spurs. So what could be like a nice normal surface when you're young can start to get you know, you can have this, let's say that's the cartilage. You can actually have something like this, and the bone gets a little jagged before the cartilage continues, and that can be a problem. Certainly you can have, like people always say, I have bone-on-bone arthritis, which isn't always true, but you can have a small bit of bone-on-bone, or you can have a lot of bone-on-bone, and those are going to be varying differences. But this will cause noise in your knee as well. But let's take a step back and let's just talk about, you squat, you have some creaking, some cracking. By the way, I can't see any questions or comments because I'm facing the back of my phone. But what happens when you're having that noise is not so much of arthritis, but more of what's called chondromalacia. And chondromalacia is a softening of the cartilage. So instead of like a nice, you remember like Thanksgiving's coming up here in the States, you break the edge of a bone at the joint of a turkey, you see that nice shiny surface, that shininess is the cartilage. But what can happen as we get older is it can start to fray. Under a microscope, or when you are in the joint and they're looking to have, maybe they're doing surgery, you can actually, it looks like cotton candy. So it's not like thin down to the bone, but instead of having, let's redraw this, instead of having this nice smooth surface, you can have cartilage on top, and then you have like a little fraying of the cartilage. So what can happen there is, you imagine like if you have two kind of like, they're there, but it's not super smooth anymore, you're gonna get some cracking and some grinding, some noise. It almost kind of sometimes feels like you're walking, I'm from Buffalo, New York, so it's like you're walking on packed snow, that kind of noise. Completely fine. We certainly don't want to accelerate that because that can lead to more serious things down the road. But if you're not having pain and you just got some noisy joints and it doesn't hurt, keep on being you, keep on living, because we're not too worried about it unless it's accompanied with sharp pain or catches. So how do you protect this stuff? So let me show you a video here in a second, but look, when you're having a lot of this creaking and cracking, if you're worried, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're varying your activity. I always talk about strength training, and I know runners don't want to strength train, they want to just run. But if you're worried about your knees, you want your knees to last, you want your hips to last, like you need to not, sit there. If you're just running all the time, you're pounding the exact same spots. The nice thing about strength training and varying your activities a little bit is you can hit all the different spots in your knee. So instead of just banging on one spot, you can start hitting the peripheries. You can start moving things around and spread out that force. So that's why it's so important to vary your activities, cross-train, especially if you're worried about your joints in the long term. Maybe they're starting to get a little bit more noisy. So let's go to the one more thing, which is like when you crack a joint. That's what I want to show you next, which is a short little video, because they actually did this under an MRI, or an x-ray rather, and actually show you what makes that noise when you crack a joint. So it's cool. You can maybe use it. I always joke that you can tell like at your next family gathering, but COVID has taken over, so maybe you won't do it, but you can share it at some point. So let me undo this here. I'm going to show you what's going on here with this. So someone just asked if you're getting a catch on the medial knee. You probably want to see a PT or a chiro or your orthopedic. A catch, like a sharp catch and going, probably somewhat related to the meniscus, and probably going to cause some problems in the future. So it could not. Like, real quick, before I show you this video, two things. One, there's a link in this post. If you want some help protecting your joints, strength training is the way to go. There's a link to the Run Smart app. Check out Base 3 Bootcamp to start. Second, your body, like if you're worried about cracking, grinding, noise in your joints, I said at the beginning of the video, it does happen to everyone at some point. The key is to protect yourself and to make sure that you are in a place where you're trying to do everything you can to preserve the joints. But over time, we all age, everything breaks down. We just want to make sure that's not breaking down too quickly. All right, so I want to show you this quick video. What is a catch? A catch would be like, so like you're doing something, it's like, ooh, and like wants to give, like something grabs. It's kind of like an ice pick, stabs you in a spot for like a split second, it catches and it feels like it wants to give. Could definitely be something like that. Let's see here. And if you have questions on like what's causing your catching, I would definitely see somebody. It's tough to say because it could be a lot of different things. This is like kind of what I just showed you, right? So here's one bone and here's another bone. We're actually going to watch them separate this out, and you're actually going to see what happens when they pull this. I believe it's a finger. This was a research study. So let's pull this apart. They're going to distract the joint. There it is. See that? Oh, let me see if I can go back a little bit. See this white spot starting to build? That's actually air. And then you're gonna see it go black when the cavitation or the pop happens. So pop, and now see how it went black? So what happened when we get that, when you get a crack of a joint, like someone manipulates it or you crack your, there you go, you can crack your fingers or your ankles or whatever it is, you're actually getting a release of air in the joint. It's not like you're tearing anything or causing any problems. It can increase mobility, so you have to definitely be careful that you're not overextending and constantly manipulating yourself, whether it's at a chiro or self-manipulation. So like, you know, people who are like, oh, just let me 1 second, like that stuff can cause some issues long term. So just be careful, because the popping that people get when they force something to go can often increase mobility over time. So real quick, high level summary: cracking and noise, not cracking, let's just call it noise in the joint. Your joints are noisy. The other thing I joke with is, like, instead of turning the music up, you're also never gonna sneak up on anybody. I usually tell my runners that. Surprised that people keep coming back. But the high level is that our joints, your joints, everyone's will become a little bit more noisy as you go on. What we're really worried about is sharp catching, feels like a dagger in the joint, or something that is like more of a clunk, like that kind of reproducible, like a clunk, and it has pain with it. Those are more of our red flags that we want to be evaluated on and looking at stuff. So don't worry about the amount of noise either. I know Lisa just posted that hers are very noisy. The amount of noise in your joint is not indicative of anything. It could be indicative of a little bit more wear and tear, but pain is your big thing. If you squat and you're like, oh my God, like you get like a click with pain, that's when you're most worried. If you're just going down and it sounds like a bunch of crunches, like, you don't force it, but you don't have to be too worried. Keep doing what you're doing. And then just get on the strength training, like balance and core strength and glute strength. That is what the key is to long-term health and running. If you're interested, you want to learn what you can do to protect your joints, check out Base 3 or Base 6 Bootcamp. Base 6 is a little bit harder. They're all found in the Run Smart app. You can find the link in this post. And I hope everyone has a great night. All right, bye everyone. Talk to you soon.